Welcome to my kitchen. If you could all cram in a little bit. Oh no, we're not allowed to do that. Plenty of room though to spread out in here. Welcome to Tuesday the 31st of March. I do believe, I don't know whether she's with us yet, it is Liz Peachman's birthday today. Whoop whoop, happy birthday Liz. I hope you have a great day. The sun is shining, which is brilliant. Makes it so much easier, doesn't it? So, I've been loving these morning bells as a daily start to my day, obviously daily day. I found it really helpful in establishing a new rhythm for my life. It's helped me to, it's just really encouraged my heart, my soul, my mind, and it's given me a bit of strength to get through the very many cups of tea that I have to keep taking into Greg. He's here, but he's at work this morning, so he can't join us, but hopefully we'll watch this later on. So to start this morning, I just want to give just a moment of quiet to still our hearts, and then I'm going to read a psalm for us. So let's just be quiet and breathe in the presence of God. I'm going to begin by reading Psalm 100. Shout for joy to the Lord, all the earth. Worship the Lord with gladness and come before him with joyful songs. Know that the Lord is God. It is he who made us. We are his. We are his people, the sheep of his pasture. Enter his gates with thanksgiving and his courts with praise. Give thanks and praise his name. For the Lord is good and his love endures forever. His faithfulness continues through all generations. And I wanted to start with that because I find that psalm a brilliant way in helping us to say that when we come into the presence of God, we come in with our hearts full of thanksgiving and our mouths full of praise. So as many of you know, I work for Icing Pop, which is a Christian charity. We work in schools all over the country. Our heart is to bring the gospel message and Christian values of love, hope, forgiveness, peace, endurance. And we teach children pop songs, and then we record a CD, and then we run a concert, which is brilliant. So I use a lot of singing. I also run my own community singing group on a Tuesday night, and it's just brilliant to be able to sing with friends. So very naturally it felt the right thing to speak about this morning is to talk about singing and to hopefully bring a few encouragements to you to get the message across that in this season we need to keep singing. So whilst I was thinking about this, I felt God draw my mind to the story of Joshua and the Battle of Jericho. I think we're all familiar with the story. If not, you can find it in Joshua chapters 5 and 6. The story where the Israelites were commanded by God to walk around the walls of Jericho 7 times. 6 times they did it in silence, and on the 7th time they raised a sound, they raised a shout, they raised their praise, they raised their cries of worship, and the walls came down. We know the story. This morning I felt, I kind of was reading, and I was particularly drawn to chapter 5, which precedes the actual event itself. In chapter 5, we read about, in my Bible it was entitled The Covenant Ceremonies. So it was all about re-establishing old practices that had been forgotten during the 40 years of wilderness and their wanderings. Namely, one of those practices was obviously circumcision. I'm not going to go into great detail about that. I'm sure you're very glad to hear. But essentially they had stopped these practices while they were in the wilderness. When I read up a little bit, and I didn't go into too much detail, and I avoided Google Images, I read a little bit about the symbolic act of what circumcision meant. And obviously this was established by Abraham with God right at the beginning in the very first covenant, the very first promise between them. And actually it was a symbolic act of Abraham saying to God, I place my life in your hands. This is my faith in you. And actually the Israelites had stopped doing that during the wilderness. In the New Testament, the practice of circumcision for the new Christians actually meant more of a circumcision of the heart, a surrendering of and trusting in the sacrifice of Jesus on the cross. So circumcision is all about faith, and it's all about trust, and it's all about coming back. Now, yesterday Anne told us the beautiful story of the prodigal son, and she talked about repentance and forgiveness. Perhaps today, as we think about a nation that had lost their way, we can reflect upon the need of our nation to re-establish our faith in God as Father, as Lord, as Creator, and we need to re-establish our belief in the sacrifice of Jesus. If we haven't already done that, can I urge us to do that today? Certainly I found in these weeks that the one thing I felt, and actually it's been good, is how small I am and just how big God is. And that's okay. To suddenly feel, you know, the fact that God has it in control, even though sometimes I feel a little bit wobbly about that. But actually to re-establish my faith in God, because he is all I have. So Joshua got on with the task in hand, and they re-established that covenant act. It was really interesting to note that actually in verse 9 in chapter 5, God says, today I have rolled away your shame. So firstly, it is that act of coming back and putting our faith back in God and knowing that God has rolled away our shame. Secondly, it's about, in verses 13 to 15, there's a really interesting moment. Joshua is stood looking out over the plains towards Jericho. And I don't know what was going on in his mind, but God decided at that moment that now was the time to visit him. And we read about Joshua and the commander of the Lord's army. Now, doing a little bit of research, some commentaries seem to suggest that actually Joshua met with God himself in that moment. We don't know for sure. Certainly the response felt very similar to when Moses was met by God in the burning bush. Joshua, his response was to fall face down in reverence. And the commander tells Joshua to take off his sandals because this was holy ground. Now, I don't know, I feel there's a sense at the moment that what we're experiencing feels like we're standing on the edge of a battlefield, as did Joshua. That as we look out and see the scales of the walls, we can feel a bit overwhelmed. But it was at this moment that God came and the place became holy ground because of the presence of God. And I sense that as I read this, that the days we are standing in at the moment feel really like holy ground, and that God is all around, and that actually more than ever we need to symbolically take off our sandals and we need to worship God. Now we know the next bit of the story, the marching, the silence, the marching and the sound. And I just want to encourage you that in this moment where we're standing on holy ground, if we follow God, if we obey him, and we bring our praise and we bring our shout and we keep singing, our song is something that can bring down walls. Whenever we believe, whatever we believe those walls to be, whether it's isolation, whether it's loneliness, whether it's fear, whether it's sickness, or whether we fear the virus itself, our praise can bring down the walls. Our singing, our sound is a gift from God. And just want to give you two more thoughts before I do a bit of singing. So firstly, there's a bit of science for you. I'm going to read it so I get it right. And if you're watching and you come to Patchwork Singing, you'll know all about this because I've talked about this, even though I pronounced the word wrong to begin with. So it's all about your vagus nerve. Your vagus nerve is a long critical nerve that wanders down from your brain all the way down your neck, your chest and your abdomen, connecting your brain stem with your body. Subsequently, it's associated with a host of different physical functions, including swallowing, your taste, your digestion, and your heart rate. Activating your nerve basically tells your brain all is well, stimulating the parasympathetic nervous system, which relaxes you. Now, your voice box, your larynx, is connected to your vagus nerve, and subsequently, when you hum or sing, you naturally activate it. So, singing brings peace. It's a gift from our Creator. Secondly, as we've already seen, singing releases power. As we read in chapter 6, the cry and the shout of the Israelites brought the walls down. I was thinking, okay, God, if you're leading us into a new season of singing, what does this look like? And I remembered the verse again in Song of Songs, chapter 2, verses 10 to 12. My beloved spoke and said to me, arise, my darling, my beautiful one, come with me. See, the winter is past, the rains are over and gone. Flowers appear on the earth, the season of singing has come. Outside, the flowers are appearing all around, and I believe we are entering into a new season of singing. Now, in this season, can I just encourage us to keep singing in our homes, wherever we are. Let's keep raising a shout in praise. Last week I was in the kitchen baking, and I had a Spotify playlist on in the background. It was a Big Church Day Out Spotify playlist, and I was listening, and I didn't know all the songs, but one song suddenly came on, and you know that moment when you listen to a song and something happens as a connection and it stops you in your tracks, and you just get caught up in it straight away. I'm going to post the link to that song after this video has finished, so that I would really encourage you all to listen to it. It's called We Praise You, and I'm just going to read the lyrics to you now because I think they're really significant. Let praise be a weapon that silences the enemy. Let praise be a weapon that conquers all anxiety. Let it rise, let praise arise. We sing your name in the dark, and it changes everything. We sing with all we are, and we claim your victory. Let it rise, let praise arise. We'll see you break down every wall. We'll watch the giants fall. Oh, fear cannot survive when we praise you. The God of breakthrough is on our side. Forever we'll lift him high. With all creation cry, God, we praise you. We praise you, we praise you. So just before we say the Lord's Prayer together, as we finish, I'm going to do a bit of singing, and I'm going to sing the song. You can see it on the screen here, so you'll see the words. It's an I Sing Pop song that I taught the children and their families on Sunday afternoon. So if you were watching Sunday afternoon and you know the song, I expect you to join in at home with me. But this is a song of thankfulness, this is a song of praise. This song talks about God turning our darkness into light and breaking the chains around our hearts. So do join in, okay? Apart from, the sound's gone off. It was working this morning, typical. Hang on. Wherever I am, wherever I go, you're always there for me. You make my life complete. I'm giving you thanks, I'm bringing you praise. You give me everything, forever I will sing. You break the chains around my heart. How great and wonderful you are. Whatever I do, whatever I say, forever be my guide and lead me through the night. You're giving me joy, you're giving me hope. To you this song I bring, forever I will sing. You break the chains around my heart. How great and wonderful you are. You turn my darkness into light, and now I lift your name on high. You make me sing, oh, oh. 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 This is what we're going to do, a bit of dancing. You can freestyle. You can copy me. The important thing is, we're singing, we're praising, we're raising a sound. So let's join together as we finish and pray the Lord's Prayer. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread and forgive us our sins as we forgive those who sin against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For the kingdom, the power and the glory are yours, now and forever. Amen. Keep singing!